Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, January 23rd, and we are back to Hearthstone. I already said that. Alright. Excuse me. Darn it, Tavern Brawls. So I already re-rolled earlier this morning. I'm still suffering with the split sleep pattern where my insomnia causes me to sleep for like 4 hours maybe, and then wake up for a couple hours and then fall asleep again for 4 hours and then wake up for a few hours, and it seems like maybe I'm getting even more than 8 hours of sleep in the 24-hour period, but maybe I'm not. But I'm not certainly being able to stay awake for any prolonged period of time, which means it's hard to find any time to actually record. Let's see, we need to play as Hunter, and that's pretty much it. The good news is, though I finished Air Memories of Old, it is such an unfinished game though. Like, it clearly was inspired by Zelda Skyward Sword, but it has no fight mechanic. Its puzzles are stupidly easy. It has 3 temples that are rather small, and so all you're really doing is flying or walking around in the entirety of the game. And when you get to the final boss fight, it doesn't even have a satisfactory ending in a cutscene form of the final boss fight. You don't even know if you win or if you die or what. So, alright, so this says ShiftCon West. ShiftCon has gotten so big it had to expand. ShiftCon West brings all the same fun, but includes some commemorative shifting scrolls. I think this is probably like a PAX West reference. So, looking at the achievements on Steam for Air Memories of Old, it's like the achievements are you have to find certain statues and characters that are just randomly placed in the world that is otherwise basically empty, and it's just not worth it because the main gameplay path, the path everybody would have seen had they played the game, is so boring that I see like no reason whatsoever that I'd want to ever go back and try and 100% achieve all of those things. Yeah, it's a game that really only had like 6 people working on it. Forgotten Key was an incredibly small company, and it certainly shows why it took them what I think 6 or 7 years to make the game, and then all they have to show is barely a 3-hour game that's not fun with low polygon Unity assets in it. I mean, it's not an asset flip, but honestly a walking simulator would have been better looking and a better experience in the long run. There's a lot of feeling with the way the music plays that the person in charge of music has no idea how music works. It should work in video games, and it's constantly playing the same 5 audio ambient noise sound effects, so you get this, and it's constantly playing background noise music, which is annoying just by being too much. Let's see, if I did this, that's probably not a terrible idea.
Prophecy.
So by playing this, it could be anything, although I could have done some other things. Since Air Memories of Old is labeled an exploration game, where honestly I think you would be better calling it just a non-game.
Get in there, fight, maggot.
That is a little unfair, but not by much.
Charge forward.
But since it's labeled an exploration game, I'm gonna play, I think, Grow Up, which would be the sequel to Grow Home, just to show a comparison of two games that both actually kind of have a low polygon art style and small areas and floating islands. There's a lot to compare there. The difference, though, is if Grow Up is anything like its predecessor, it gives you a lot more to do. And I don't think that's just because Grow Up is going to have the character have to climb up things instead of being able to fly like you can in Air Memories Vault. You can just turn into a bird at any time and fly. There's another game called Vane. It's a PS4 exclusive, I believe, that's out right now, and it's not getting very well reviewed, but it is doing a very similar thing to Air Memories of Old, because you play as a bird and then eventually turn into a human, but it locks you into those states, I think, so that you at specific story points switch back and forth, not just with the press of a button. And the button layout actually in Air Memories of Old is pretty bad too, because you press A to jump, and then you press A again while in the air to transform into a bird, but then to flap your wings and effectively jump as a bird, you press X. So when you're flying around as a bird, I very often would hit A, untransform as a bird, and start falling to my doom until I transformed back. And the B button is not used at all, which is kind of crazy.
Accidents, they happen, you know? Accidents, they happen, you know?
What do we want to do here? Just play that, I guess.
Drain away.
An attack, okay. Yeah, I'm in a weird position, certainly, with deciding what games I'm gonna play and when and where. Like, theoretically, I have Assassin's Creed 3 installed, but I'm just kind of gonna go wherever my whim takes me, and particularly in 2019, I think that is going to be a personal goal, is to just do whatever feels right instead of doing what the let's see, what will this do? 2 damage to all minions.
This piggy's going to market.
Drain
Like,
away.
instead of trying to change or fit in or follow more logical patterns, I'm just gonna play whatever I'm more excited about, because I think excitement is the key towards maintaining a YouTube channel at this point. Is you've got to be hyped a little bit about playing the game, otherwise you shouldn't be playing it. Yeah, I really couldn't recommend anybody buying Air Memories of Old. There's better Unity exploration games from indie developers on Steam. There's kind of, it doesn't do anything, and the only thing that made it even slightly unique or worth playing was the fact that their company announced they were going out of business. So it is in the fact that they failed, that they got any coverage at all. And I totally see now, having played the entirety of the main story, like, why nobody would have reviewed this game in the first place. And the story is terrible too. In English it is, at least. It's a bunch of pseudo-intellectual gibberish. It's all supposed to be building up this backstory of a religion, but none of it means anything at all. So it's just kind of ridiculous. Well, I got half of my quest done and got the tavern brawl done. So we need to start moving towards doing at least one more, and we need to start covering the news because, yeah, there's so little to say about the one game I did play. I'm doing 30-minute episodes, which honestly, since basically nobody watches my episodes anyways, and they're there just for historical purposes at this point. That's pretty much all my YouTube channel feels like it ever is. Doing 30-minute episodes versus an hour episodes is fine. I could probably do 10-minute episodes and it would be fine. It just means that even a short game that takes about 3 hours to beat will end up taking me 5 hours, which means it will be 10 episodes, so it's nearly 2 or 3 weeks of content that gets spread out, but whatever. Alright, let's start covering games. We have a game on Steam called The Town, which looks like it's an RPG Maker style game. It may not be in English because, yeah, English language not supported, $1.69. Chinese. There is something I think that has been kind of consistently a weird thing about the games that come out of China, that they tend to be more accepted if they're more old school and simplistic. I guess what you could say there is that since there really haven't been any console sales at all in China, like only for brief periods of time have consoles been allowed to be sold. China, and since the fact that China is flooded with Nintendo clones, Famicom clones, that almost every game that you plug and play into a TV, almost every rip-off, copyright infringing handheld and console rip-offs that come out of China, they usually in their guts are just cloning a Famicom computer. They kind of have this long experience that never grew up, where games that Chinese people are familiar with look like games from the NES era. That also probably combines nicely with what China is trying to do with their censorship rules, is that they don't want the games to be modern and good looking, because if they're modern and good looking, more kids will play it, and they don't want kids playing video games. They want them to be going to school, working really hard, and joining the military, pretty much. They don't want them to get used to the idea of having free time also, because it's not the lifestyle that an average Chinese person is likely to have much of. Moving on though, we've got another game on Steam called Heroes of Maiden, which looks like almost an Angry Birds military mix of a game. This is slightly interesting looking. Giant planes with a giant robot, I guess is what that is. But overall, this really doesn't look like anything that's super interesting. Also, English is not supported again. This is just a Russian game. Yep. So, yeah, it's kind of an odd mix of gameplay mechanics. You build something, and is this supposed to be like Air Force One crashing? And then there's this giant Halo Master Chief outfit running around attacking things.
Quickly.
Anyways.
Job done.
So yeah, another game that's not gonna make it to the wish list. Next we have a game on Steam called Meistr, M-E-I-S-T-R. Clearly this is a cell phone port of some sort. It's labeled a strategy simulation. I can't even read what this is. But yeah, this is gotta be just a cell phone game that's probably not that interesting in the first place. $3.99. What languages is it? English and Korean? Let's see. Let's hit that. And then hit that. And let's see if we can do that. Speaking of the Chinese government, GameIndustry.biz has an article. Tencent and NetEase absent from the third wave of Chinese game approvals. No games from China's two key publishers have been included in the 257 games cleared so far. Which I would like to see the number of how many were rejected if the implication here is that 257 games were approved. Like, let's see. Well, apparently the first wave approved 80 games, the second wave approved 84 games, and this wave brings the total to 257.
What now?
Neither companies responded to comment to GameIndustry.biz, and since the approvals freeze in March of 2018, both Tencent and NetEase have suffered in terms of stock value. Tencent is down 28% from its peak share price in March 2018, and NetEase has declined 23%. What's funny there is I would have thought that this news would have affected their share prices a lot more, and so it is probably something to applaud for Tencent and NetEase, is that they both have figured out to heavily invest in companies outside of China, thus circumvent any instability, I suppose would be the word, that happens inside China video game market, for what little there is in a video game market in China. There you go.
You're pulling this back.
Win streak bonus. Okay, and so we need to still play hunting class cards. So we'll just jump back in here. Next we have a game on Steam called I See You, which I think is a VR game. It says it's an online VR hide and seek game where you play with partners. So it's a multiplayer game, so it's not going to make it to the wish list. I don't really see how this is a hide and seek game unless this is a case of you can turn yourself into objects, like that Minecraft mod.
Let the hunt begin.
Wow, and I've pretty much already forgotten that I would played Stone Block at this point. Just enough to remember that I probably don't want to play Minecraft for another few years. Multiplayer only, $5.99. Yep, I'm not seeing anything in that that is particularly interesting. Let's trade these three out. At this rate, I need to probably burn through the games because I'm gonna get through the daily quests pretty quickly. See, we need that. Definitely need that. So next we have a game on Steam called Aztec Tower. It looks like it might be a VR stand in one place archery tower defense game. Yep. That's exactly what it is, $4.99. This one looks a little bit more realistic in its graphics than what you usually get, because usually it's always ogres and fantasy magic stuff. But it's still just a tower defense game, you know? And those aren't really worth playing. $4.99. Plus, you have to use VR. What we are starting to see, and I would call it a trend at this point, is more VR games that are below $7.99. Whereas up to the end of 2019, well, up to the end of 2018, there was kind of this very steadfast high price point for video games that had VR integrated, even if the video game was just a low effort asset flip game. Like, very rarely were you seeing any VR game below $7.99. The fact that the price is going down means that even the people who thought they could make some money on it have started to realize that they can't make any money on it.
I hunt alone.
But it kind of doesn't matter, because unless you can get the price down for the headset to buy an HTC Vive or Oculus Rift, unless they're getting that down to a less than $100 price point, you can give me a million free VR games and I still wouldn't invest in the headset. Let's face it, at this point I don't think I'd invest in the headset regardless. Alright, so I can't play that one. Can't play that one.
I hunt alone.
It just kind of leaves me with my options limited. Alright. Next we have a game on Steam called Papercraft with a bunch of Asian characters before it. It looks like it's a strategy hex grid RPG. I kind of like the art style, but it doesn't really tell me what it is. Here, early access, $12.99. English and Chinese. That does not bode for confidence. I suppose I could put this on the follow list, and I'll be generous and do that, but it says it combines roguelite, TBS, and DBG elements. What? I know what roguelike is. TBS would, I assume, be tabletop strategy, and DBG, maybe that is like dungeon board gaming, so maybe that's what that is, but those phrases are not something that's universally known, obviously, not to me at least. But yeah, I'll be generous, I'll put this on the follow list. It has to come out of early access first before anything else can happen, so let's see. I'm gonna play a coin, and then I'm gonna do this. That way there's just one more room.
I hunt alone.
Next we have a game on Steam called Barbaroja, which looks like it's a hex grid overworld strategy game of some point. This feels like this might be some kind of military skirmish reference that I'm not familiar with. Never heard of Barbaroja, but it sounds like it could be like in India or Pakistan or something like that. Might be in Vietnam. Let's see. It says reenacts the entire period of war between Germany and Russia in 1941 and 45, so I was pretty far off. That's $19.99, and it's in English and Spanish, Spain language. This game just kind of looks ugly and boring, so yeah, I don't think I'll be doing anything with that.
I moves quickly.
Let's end the turn. I don't think we have a lot of news, just a lot of games that came out between this and then. Let's see. 2 damage and adjacents, destroy a random minion. Deal 3 damage. Summon a wolf.
I hunt alone.
Job done.
There we go. That's a strategy. Next we have a game on Steam called Atlas Protect Your Planet. It's from a troll publisher and developer. I remember these names. Now this game itself just looks like it's a kind of MS Paint Asteroids clone. We've seen worse Asteroid clones on Steam. But knowing this developer, it's 59 cents. Here's a bundle for $88.59. Here's a bundle that includes 84 items for $10.98, and it's English and Russian. This game is not going to be long, it's not going to be good. The fact that these still are allowed, like calling yourself Putin Incorporated or Illumicorp, as in the Illuminati, seems like somebody should have seen those names and investigated a little bit. There still feels like there's some weirdness the way Steam does its things. like,
To load.
Job's done.
yeah, because I really would say that they are straight up trolls, and yet these games still come out. I had a thought, and I might even have called it a fantasy. I was thinking, if I was hired by Valve, what strategy would I implement to help Valve be a video game company that makes video games again, in particular. And I've said before, the first thing I would do if I ever was in charge of Valve would be to remove the wheels from the desks so that people stopped and could not just leave a task unfinished, or leave the second they get bored with a task. I'd actually make people do work, in other words, and work that the company had approved and wants to do, and give it some actual leadership, which is the one thing I think Game Newell doesn't want Valve to be, is a place where you're actually required to do too much of anything. But the new thought was, I think I would implement a policy, particularly in Valve's case, of new, old, and more, or old, new, and more, or any variation of that. And every year I would say, we're going to have a policy where this year we are going to bring out a remaster of our old games. That's going to be an old year. We're going to bring out a new game from a new IP. So just a whole new series, not connected to anything else we've already done. And then we're going to bring out a sequel to a series we already own, and that would be a more year. And I think if you just every 3 years cycled through that, and that's your goal, is you're going to make at least that much content, you would at the very least be on the path to having a having a system, having something come out every year. Like, even if Valve only on those new years put out short, small indie games, that would be fine. I wouldn't be totally upset if they came out with something that was super short. But just committing to actually doing something is really where I'd want us to go. I'm gonna take that one, and I'm gonna take that one. It doesn't matter. Anyways. Yeah.
You require my assistance?
You would definitely want to release a new game in between the years of releasing a sequel or a new game. So, I think you probably, first year that you started this policy, you would probably want you probably want to put out a new game from a new series, and then give it 2 years, really. So put out a new game, put out a remaster, so an old game, and then put out a sequel to an old game. And so by the time you put out that sequel to the old game, your new game from the new IP would have had more time than it probably would be actually allowed to have to succeed.
Job's done.
But I mean, this is also just a pie in the sky theory. In practice, you still have to be able to run a company and actually get a project finished. EA with their Star Wars license proving that is sometimes difficult. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Demon's Tilt, which looks like a kind of cool looking, I guess is the only phrase. I was gonna say devil worship, heavy metal style, art style pinball game, and I guess that is somewhat accurate too. It kind of feels a little bit different from a real pinball game and more like an Arkanoid or shooter style, maybe even a bullet hell style game. Now, I'm a sucker for pinball, so I'll put this on the follow list and see when it comes out of early access if it's still positive. The thing about pinball games on Steam, this is pretty expensive too at $13.49. The thing about pinball games on Steam though is they kind of have a high tendency to not really
tracks to follow.
That draw 5 secrets from your deck. Interesting. And Wind Fury. Can I do both of these? That was the only secret I had.
Job's done.
Interesting. Yeah, so pinball games tend not to play very well or be very smooth. It's a shame. Even the top 2 pinball emulators on Steam tend to not feel as good as you'd like them to feel. Okay. Moving on, Gematsu has an article. Langreiser 1 and 2 demo launches February 7th in Japan. Langreiser has been running ads on YouTube. So I've been seeing quite a bit of them
Job's done.
lately. It's a JRPG game that is, well, apparently they have like a cell phone version too, because this article is talking about the PS4 and Switch versions. I don't think Langreiser is new. And the animation style, the animated style on it is not something that I would particularly call a new style. Let's take some cheap cards to play. I'm just gonna click through the gallery real quick and see if there's anything really to say more about this game. Not really. It doesn't seem like it is a team-based RPG as much as it's maybe an army leading RPG. So you'll get into these fights where it seems like there's at least 10 soldiers on horseback in front of a general character that you're playing as, and you're just throwing those soldiers against the enemy soldiers. See, discover secret. Let's see. Put this down. Schedule. this and this.
Job's done.
And the churn. Yep. I really didn't see anything about Langriser that looked interesting. Honestly though. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. The Resident Evil 2 one-shot demo tops 3 million downloads. A pre-launch special live stream is set for January 22nd. It seems like at least a couple of people have already gotten early access to Resident Evil 2 in total. Either that or they are kind of misrepresenting what's going on and instead pretending like they had access to the game when really they just had access to the so 2, 4, 6, 8. I guess. Who do we appreciate? Can't attack that, but I can get one of these guys off the field. I'm in a weird position certainly with Resident Evil 2 because it looks like it's great, which is kind of what I was afraid of happening, is that it would turn out to be a really, really good game and then it would be hard for me to try and find time. Like, if Resident Evil 2 is great, then that kind of means I want to go play the remastered Resident Evil 1, and then it also play the remastered Resident Evil 2. Then it also opens the doors, like, are we going to see Resident Evil 3 Code Veronica, or is there a different game called Resident Evil 3 that's not Code Veronica? Because I kind of don't even know what Resident Evil 3 is. I know Resident Evil 4, certainly, that's one of my favorite games ever, but let's just go real cheap here. Yeah, it's still not cheap enough. Thank goodness we had poison. Nope. Still didn't do enough damage.
Job's done.
I don't know why he froze his own character. That might have been a mistake. But yeah, I don't know where I'd get the extra financing to get those two games, and more than just getting the extra financing to buy the remaster of Resident Evil 1 and 2, it's the extra time. Almost certainly I would just run through all those games once and not properly play them, where you're supposed to actually, in Resident Evil games, at least the good ones, you're supposed to play the games multiple times through. So Resident Evil 2 in particular is definitely built that way. If I do this first, this is what I needed, and so now I just need something super cheap so I can do this. And then I'm gonna play this in the hopes, unless this is a freezing trap, I should win.
Job's done.
Misdirection. Done. So this still goes on. This game is getting dragged out. Certainly. Next we have a game on Steam called the Hong Kong Massacre, which is a top-down twin-stick shooter. It's already rated mostly positive by a lot of people, so it probably is a good game. I'm just not really... It's just not my style of game at this point. In the same way that I've probably resolved myself to not play any hidden object games, I don't think I need to resolve. At this point, I need to resolve myself to say I'm not gonna play any top-down twin stick shooter games. Not unless it has a great reason. This also is $17.99 discounted. That's really expensive. This is the kind of game I'd like to see other people review and see if it's really worth that price. But that's kind of my only interest in it.
I wonder.
Let's see. Start with this. That. And then that. And play that. So I'm not even gonna put it on my wish list, but maybe somebody will tell me something about it. So this should damage this one. Oh, I thought it was gonna damage the people next to it. Awesome.
Warriors of the frozen wastes, rise.
Well, I suppose if I could stay alive for 4 more turns.
I'm out of cards.
But I'm out of cards too, so let's see. Yeah, the card Echo Rush. That doesn't, so I couldn't play that the way I'd like to play it anyways.
Job's done.
And moving on, we have a game on Steam called Bounty Hunter, which looks like a asset flip 3D open world game. And it's saying it's an RPG. If it is, it's pretty lacking in detail visually. $5.99, English and simplified Chinese as languages. So yeah, another game not making it to the wish list. No surprise there, most of them don't. Did I play enough cards? Yes, I did. So that's all 3 of the daily quests done on the Americas account. There's no more reason really to continue playing on that account. Let's move over to the European account. Next we have a game on Steam called Shoot Online, which looks like it's a golf game. I might put this on the fall list. It looks kind of like it might be a good golf game, although I'm not sure I want a golf game that is a pure golf game in my life. I think I would want some silliness or some RPG elements. It's free to play. What languages does it support? Just English. So yeah, it kind of feels like this is a ripoff of some other golf games that I've seen. It's free, but I don't know if I want this on the follow list. As a free-to-play game, there's no reason to criticize it or play it. Yeah, so take it off that list. Alright, today we need to play Beasts, which again would be Hunter, and win 5 games in mode in the European account. So Hunter, this, close that tab. Gamasutra has an article. Obsidian is patching an optional turn-based mode into Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire. Quote, one thing the RPG designers can get caught up as an idea of a design on paper, but really what really matters in the end is how it changes the feel of the game. Let's see. Obsidian of Pillars of Eternity Deadfire. Obsidian's Pillars of Eternity Deadfire launched last year with a rather traditional real-time strategy RPG, but soon it won't be the only genre it occupies. The team is launching an update later this week to give the players the option to play Deadfire as a turn-based strategy game. An overhaul that, according to the director, tremendously changes how the game is played. That's a waste of a card to play that. Quote, not a lot of players slow down and look at all the armor ratings on enemies in real time, Sawyer tells PC Games In. I've never heard of that website. But in turn-based, if you're a 9th level wizard and have every element to cast from, at the time to look around the battlefield, there's a lot more deliberation. It almost feels like if you were going to patch that into a game, it feels like that you probably want people to go back and play your game a second time, or you probably want people who play it for the first time to take a lot more time. So I don't know. The question I guess here would be, what was the reception of it now? Let's see. It is on Steam 72% positive. What do I want to do? Yeah, we'll go ahead and play that. So yeah, Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire is 72% positive in the last 30 days and 81% positive in total. I believe Pillars of Eternity might be one of these games that is the spiritual successor to Diablo. And since Diablo Immortal, the mobile game, was announced and there was a big problem with that, maybe this is just the fastest thing they could do to get back in the news and convince people that they want to play it. They might want to play the game. Honestly, for a game that looks like this, I still don't think I would use the turn-based option, not unless you could just, not unless you can flip it back and forth. That's the thing that I would really want to see, is can you flip the real-time playing back on and off during a whim, because I could see myself in big boss fights wanting to do real-time strategies, but when grinding, definitely not wanting to do that. Pillars of Eternity had an all-time peak of 22,000 people playing it according to Steam charts, and today's peak is 1,473 people. So yeah, that's an interesting player choice thing. I guess I don't have any real reason why I am inherently against it or anything. Like, it sounds like a cool idea. It also kind of sounds like it might have been wasting some people's time as far as working towards like a Pillars of Eternity 3, but it's possible that the programmers who put in the turn-based feature really didn't have to do that much, or would have not had any other work to work on anyways. I wouldn't be surprised if that game is kind of short. Moving on, GameIndustry.biz, European PlayStation headquarters to remain in London as no Brexit fears mount. Now, I've gotten some conflicting stories here, where yeah, the subtitle here I guess explains it better. The Sony Electronics prepares to head to the Netherlands. So the main PlayStation parent company moved to California, and that's where we've started to see all of this, as I understand it, all these new censorship requirements that that are existing. But European PlayStation, I guess, is staying in London, but Sony Electronics, so all the other electronics Sony makes, which is TVs and mostly at this point, I would say, maybe some PCs and laptops that they make, if they're still doing that. All of that is moving to the Netherlands because of Brexit, which is a mess. Speaking of Sony censorship, I don't know if I have an article actually on this, but I heard the creator of Dead or Alive basically said, enjoy the boob physics, the bouncy boobs, and the sexiness of Dead or Alive silently, so we can continue to have it, because if you say anything about it out loud, all the and this is my interpretation from this at this point, interpretation of that sentence is, if you say anything out loud, then that will bring attention to it, and all the outrage mob and the SJWs will come and attack it like they have before, which that is literally the definition of a silencing effect. That's where the Japanese game developers feel like they are, is that they are being forced into silence, and they can't even speak and say that they like things. And once you're forced into silence and can't speak out loud and say you like things, it is only one step away from people saying, well, nobody really likes these boob physics in the game anyway, so let's just remove them. 2 damage to all minions. And this and that. Yeah. So I personally, as a raging free speech supporter, would say do not be scared in the silence. Boldly come out and say, hey, yeah, I do like these sex games, or games that have sexiness in them. I like when a game that is supposed to look and feel realistic actually looks and feels realistic, and isn't living in some puritanical censored fantasy world where boobs don't bounce. Like, hey, it's the real world, boobs bounce, particularly when you're jumping on a beach. And I kind of live that too. I've more and more tried not to shy away from saying, hey, these games, these adult games, these sex games, I don't even like calling them adult games, these sex games on Steam, hey, they exist. If there was a way I could play them and cover them, I would cover them on YouTube. And I do want to own these games to, at the very least, support the industry, even if I would never actually have time to get around to actually playing them. At the point where I have so much in the terms of a lot of things, I do at points just reach a level where I'm supporting the industry and buying things that I'm not even probably ever going to have time to enjoy. Like, there are definitely movies that I own, both anime and regular movies, that I've never watched. There are definitely video games I've purchased and not played, tons of them on Steam, yet I plan to kind of play them. Tons of there's quite a few comic books I I bought and didn't read, but I'm not really supporting that industry so much as I just bought a few and I'm falling further and further behind.
Rexar versus
And,
Soranoyo.
a lot of people would say that's not frugal, and I agree with them, but also it's ambitiousness too. Like, if you want to do something, it's generally speaking a good thing. If you're prepared to do something, that's better than just sitting around and never doing it. Someday I might be able to retire, and in that retirement I might go back and finish everything, and I would hate to be bored in my old age.
Reporting for duty.
Moving on, GameIndustry.biz has an article. GameEye, G-A-M-E-Y-E, closes $1.6 million seed funding round. Multiplay founder Craig Fletcher joins the company as a advisor. The GameEye is a Dutch multiplayer infrastructure firm, apparently. And that's pretty much all that needs to be said, in my opinion.
Who's ready to make some money?
Quickly.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all that needs to be said on that story, though. GameIndustry.biz has a story. According to NPD, the US video game sales reached $43.4 billion last year. Red Dead Redemption 2 was crowned the best-selling game of 2018. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate took the sales in December. I don't know how much more of this is.
I don't have enough mana.
This is important. You know, play this.
The greatest books in space.
Let's see. So the sales are up 18% year over year, so 18% more sales in 2018 than 2017. That kind of makes sense. There was a lot of stuff that came out in 2018, but from a video game critic perspective, I don't know if 2018 was a particularly good year as far as quality products. It just, there was a lot of things that came out. And most people are suckers and will buy anything anyway, so they fell for it. It says hardware revenue, including peripherals, reached $7.5 billion, up 15% year over year. There wasn't really any new hardware in 2018, I don't think. One damage to all other minions. Random minions you have to cost less. And we'll do that later. And we'll do this. Let's see. Software revenue was up 18% year over year to $35.8 billion, which those two numbers added up pretty much to what you got, that 43 billion. Are there any really other things that need to be said? Call of Duty Black Ops was in second place, Black Ops 4. Alright, the top 10 selling games for December were Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Red Dead Redemption 2, Black Ops 4, Battlefield 5, NBA 2K19. Let's see.
I don't have enough mana.
Darn it. I'm just gonna do this
Plenty to go around.
and this.
Form of dragon.
Number 6 was Mario Kart 8. 7 was Madden NFL 19. Number 8 was Super Mario Party, followed by Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, and Marvel's Spider-Man. If they had only come out with one Pokemon Let's Go, I wouldn't be surprised if Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu and Eve combined would have been in the 4th spot. Let's see. For the full year, top 10 selling games was Red Dead Redemption 2, Call of Duty Black Ops 4, NBA 2K19, Madden 19. Those sports games still sell. Smash Bros. Ultimate, Spider-Man, Far Cry 5 was the 7th best-selling game, and yet mainstream video game journalists refused to give it any more coverage that it actually deserves. God of War was the 8th best-selling game. Monster Hunter World. Both of those games got a lot of coverage, but were early year. And then Assassin's Creed Odyssey was number 10. With the exception of Smash Bros. Ultimate and Monster Hunter's World, the other 8 games in the top of 2018 are not Japanese games, which maybe that's slightly fair. If you've got the Nintendo games somewhere on the list, and if you've got Monster Hunter World on the list, I can't really think of something else that came out in 2018 from Japan that really deserved to be in the top 10. Not at the moment, at least. Maybe I could think of something later.
Let's show our guests a good time.
Taste my blade.
Moving on, GameIndustry.biz has an article, Metro Exodus publisher confident over showdown with Crackdown and Far Cry. Deeps over on how it's readied a marketing assault ahead of the crowded February 15th launch. So, the Far Cry spin-off, New Dawn, and Crackdown 3 are both coming out at the exact same time as Metro Exodus. I would probably lean towards Metro Exodus being the game that deserves to be the winner there, but this is a lot of the same problem that happened in 2018, where clearly Crackdown should have shifted a week ahead or behind. Far Cry should have probably shifted a week too. There's really no reason. I haven't played a single beast, and look how fuzzy this is. Like, either I'm having a stroke right now or the game screwed up. It's rendering again. Yep. Nope, it was just a game. There is definitely a chance that Metro Exodus is just like too short of a game and not really welcome. Metro Exodus has a decent chance to put the nail in the coffin for like Fallout 76 more than anything else, and Fallout 4, because that would be the game series I would think that it's probably most closely competing with visually, where Crackdown has always been this fun run and gunning game that is kind of just a fantasy exploration collectathon game, and then Far Cry is more of a competitor to something like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where I bet Assassin's Creed Odyssey's DLC suffers a drop in player base because of Far Cry. So the three games are pretty different, but they still are all competing for relatively the same kind of players. And in all honesty, can't think of a single incident where somebody spent too much money on advertising their game. Like, I've never really seen that be an issue. So we'll see. And February 15th is certainly not any time too far away. So we're going to start seeing games come out pretty quickly.
What's happening?
PlayStation Europe tweeted, gamers in Spain, Italy, Portugal, Denmark, Finland, Norway, and Sweden. PlayStation Now is on the way. So it seems like they're trying to bring PlayStation Now to everybody. PlayStation Now being the streaming service, I think, so you kind of take that for what it is worth. Yeah, it definitely feels like streams that I run for the next few are all going to be very laid back, yawny, tired things. I don't even know what to do. That's the thing, is I don't know how to force myself to sleep a good quality 8 hours so I wake up and I'm bright-eyed. Which is kind of, I'm never in that condition. But it definitely sucks when I'm sitting here and just yawning. Moving on, Gematsu has an article. Toho Ginso Wanderer Lotus Labyrinth launches July 18th in Japan. This is, I believe, a visual novel, if I was to guess. It's coming out for the PS4 and Switch July 18th in Japan. No, it's not a visual novel, it's a RPG. Like, apparently it was delayed earlier this summer, and I don't remember what this game is particularly focused on. All I see is a thumbnail with two anime girls on it. A screenshot with two anime girls on it, which doesn't tell me much. Mirror entity. And do we want to do anything else? TechRaptor has the same article. US game sales hit 43.4 billion in 2018. Red Dead Redemption 2, highest selling game of the year. You know, even though Red Dead Redemption 2 is the highest selling game, it's certainly not getting talked about. The hype and excitement for it has already been burned up and used. And Red Dead Online is a joke. Nobody's happy with that. That was a mistake. That sucked.
Come close and listen.
In the charm. Gematsu has an article, Dead or Alive Extreme 3 Scarlet, Marie Rose, and Hanaka trailer. So Dead or Alive Extreme 3 Scarlet is got a new trailer. Guess we could watch the trailer. It's a minute 30 minutes. Minute 30 seconds, and here we're seeing a... I don't know in Dead or Alive if you really even call them anime girls, because it's not really going for a flat 2D anime style. So a girl in cat ears playing in the pool and different swimsuits. You know, the swimsuits aren't even that extreme anymore. They're actually quite reserved. One of them's in a schoolgirl outfit, or punk rocker schoolgirl outfit, so maybe the game will get banned on Steam.
They'll never know what hit.
Yeah, they're two-piece bikinis, and that's kind of it. At the end of this trailer, we see one of them in like a one-piece cow pattern bikini, and she was jumping around, and there's a lot of bouncing there. Alright. So here's one bikinis. The bikinis are starting to get a little bit simpier and a little bit more high fashion, but really nothing too extreme there. From, you know, on the trailer at least. I mean, remember, there's plenty of nude beaches all around that, or topless beaches around. Let's see. Although, interestingly, after watching this trailer, YouTube is suggesting quite a few random videos. One is Dr. Pimple Popper, too. So interesting. Interesting what it determined I'd be interested in. You hear it took damage this turn. Do we have any beasts to play? Let's just play this so that we play a beast. Let's just do this. Let's just take this guy out.
Quickly.
Oh, I probably could have played that. That sucks. Oops, I could have attacked there. Gamatsu has an article, God Eater Series 9th anniversary has an official broadcast set for February 4th. God Eater 3 is to be updated to version 1.11 in Japan. So the thing about Japanese companies when they do these announcements, they tend not to really say anything. So I doubt we'll run into too much that. God Eater 3 launches for the PS4 on December 13th in Japan and is due out for the PS4 in North America and Europe, and PC worldwide February 8th.
Speak your piece.
God Eater being the monster hunter equivalent, where you're fighting less dragon monsters and you have slightly more of an anime storyline, as it would generally be described. So we played two beasts and we're not even getting victories, so let's see if maybe the rogue might work a little bit better on this Tavern Brawl for a victory. Gamatsu has an article, Dead or Alive 6 hands-on preview and interview with the producer-director Yohei Shimbori, fighting game sequel due out March 1st. and this is a different game, I suppose, than Dead or Alive Scarlet, Dead or Alive Extreme Scarlet. So Dead or Alive Extreme is when the characters from the Dead or Alive fighting series are on the beach playing around. Dead or Alive proper is a fighting game.
Valera versus Jane.
Let's see
You
if the
asked
quote
for it.
is in here.
Watch your
Let's see.
back.
There's a quote here that says, every platform should have the same exact content, and while this doesn't have anything to do with censorship, there are some differences between platforms when it comes to things like resolution. Fair enough. And then the follow-up question, cool, so there's no changes that were required by an outside company, correct? And then the follow-up question to that is, in the past, it's been said Dead or Alive 6 is toned down compared to the previous title. And he's now saying, actually, when we said toned down before, it was actually misunderstood. So we're hoping to avoid using phrases from now on like that from now. Rather than toning it down, it's more of a change in image. Since the main concept of Dead or Alive is intense fighting entertainment, we decided everything from the user interface to the default costumes of the characters to show each character's fighting style. For example, Hitomi is a karate user, so she wears karate clothes. Yeah, this is the standard, probably Japanese doublespeak, where they're saying whatever they think you want to hear. You'll never really get a Japanese person to tell you what they're really thinking, at least as far as I've ever found, because they don't want to cause conflict. The quote, I skipped some of this part, but let's see. When people first saw this, they thought the entire game would be toned down, but it's only the default costume. There are some costumes that are more cutesy looking and have some that are sexy. So it's not toned down, it's just we based the game on the desire to create this image of an intense fighting entertainment. Let's see, I'm gonna play this.
Power takes many forms.
He also says, also Dead or Alive has male characters, and another thing we wanted to focus on is that there were some new players that might feel embarrassed about playing the game, which we wanted to avoid, which is why we made the default costumes have a cooler, more heroic look to them. And then the follow-up question here is, and to finalize that topic, what are your personal thoughts on the whole Sony censorship ordeal that has been a hot topic of late? Let's see. Can't play that. Can't play that.
Here we go.
Let's go and do that. And he responds, in regards to regulations, it's not actually just limited to Sony. There has been a worldwide change in views recently, but for this game we really wanted to focus on the fighting game aspect. The only thing I regret for Dead or Alive 6 is since it's a Japanese game, there are some parts of Japanese culture that recent times have deemed no longer acceptable. So not being able to show this is a bit of a disappointment. Let's see. See if there's anything else that interests me personally on this interview, because generally I don't cover interviews. No, not really. Dead or Alive 6 is due out for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC on March 1st. No, Dead or Alive might be the fighting game for me that I would eventually land on. It's hard at this point to to feel like I would want to play
Here we go.
the Mortal Kombat series or the Injustice series, because I don't think those series are going anywhere at this point. There's still the Blaze Blue series and some other series to consider, but I don't think Street Fighter would be the one that I'd want to play either. So, as I'm still whittling down the options in my mind, if I ever am going to play a fighting game, which is kind of a big if, I think I probably would put Dead or Alive on the higher point of the list. The one fighting game I did play in the past, back when I was playing the Xbox 360, was Rumble Rose's DX, which is straight up a like sexy girls and sexy costumes, basically mud wrestling game, or fake wrestling. Let's see. Friendly minion.
The game begins.
Kill that. Moving on, Gematsu has an article. The Opus Collection, which is The Day We Found Earth and Rockets of Whisper, for the Switch launches in April of North America. I believe both of these games are kind of RPG Maker games, but apparently they're relatively popular, because, or at least relatively good, because we're seeing the transition over. Although that really is a big assumption, because it does kind of feel like at this point almost any game, if you want it to come to the Switch eShop, can come to the Switch eShop. Nintendo seems to be more than willing to do that. It's not actually an RPG Maker game, it's more of a flat 2D adventure game. Yeah, and it looks actually better than what I remember, so. This is another instance where both of these games are on Steam, so if I was to get them and play them, there would be some relevancy and a reason to do that. Gotta play these beasts with the rush. Interesting.
Checkmate.
Well, if these have rush, I'll just kill this and this. That. Another article Gematsu has is Will a Wonderful World Physical Edition for the PS4 and Switch launches May in North America. Will a Wonderful World, I think, is a visual novel, but man, I keep thinking things are visual novels and they really aren't. This one actually is. I'll skip through the trailer. I think the kind of interesting thing about this visual novel is it shows you a kind of timeline of the way things go, but it's pretty text-based too. So yeah, so it might be a little bit easier to play with many different endings and branching paths than what you normally would have. Right. Destroy a minion with one or less attack. Summon something with 2s.
Here we go.
Check.
Again, Will a Wonderful World, I believe, is on Steam. So if I had time, I could jump into that and play it. Let's see. Gamasutra has an article. Hothead Games opens a new publishing developing. The Canadian developer Hothead Games has opened a new division of use Focus on using analytical marketing and development resources to publish mobile games from other developers. So they're gonna try and get into mobile publishing, which what do you really need to publish your game on mobile? It doesn't seem like much. I suppose there's a chance that you could gain a little bit from that.
I did this. I cursed them all. Checkmate.
Here we go.
I'll be interested to see if this hero power really does freeze the target, because I don't see how that would. Like, that doesn't that mean it would freeze me? Interesting. We'll see next turn if I freeze myself because this character's on the field. Let's see. Gamasutra has this blog, The Rise of the Influencer and Why Epic's new store approach is huge. I kind of disagree that that's how this is going to go down, and I don't feel like, even as a YouTuber who could be described as maybe an influencer, but I really wouldn't use that term to describe myself. One, I don't really have any influence, and two, nope, it didn't freeze me. Interesting. Two, I don't think that's really what I want to be, or anything close to what I am. Let's see. So is that going to copy this or that? Interesting. I copied that.
Checkmate.
Here we go.
Yeah. So that's an article you can read if you're interested. I'm not super interested in a blog though. Just moving on. Gamatsu has an article, Code Realize Wintertide Miracles trailer, which is this game, Code Realize Wintertide Miracles, is due out for the PS4 and PS Vita in November, in North America, February 14th. Let's see, Code Realize is a visual novel. So the visual novels still keep on churning. I'm skipping through the trailer. I kind of like the art style, but I really couldn't tell you what's going on in it, other than it seems to be mostly set in like a winter Christmassy time. Okay, that took us quite a long time to get that tavern brawl, and it's been about an hour and 35 minutes. So let's open the pack and then end this recording, and then we'll break it up for a second recording. I need to get back to at least making 2 episodes every 2 days. Yep, 5 cards. That's pretty much all I can say nowadays, opening these classic card packs, is yeah, I got 5 cards, and we'll just disenchant all of them. Yep, and that'll give us a tiny bit of dust. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. Stay tuned if you're watching live. As always, I ask that you like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below, and if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.